I have a really great episode, I think, tonight, and we're going to be going into day 5 of a full bathroom remodel that basically took me 7 days. And if you're new to this channel is all about providing information to be able to get you to be able to remodel your own bathroom efficiently and effectively. If you don't know me, I'm Steve White. I am a contractor in the Pittsburgh area. For the last 22 years, I've been a contractor. And the last 14, I've specialized in bathroom remodeling. So I have a lot of experience with bathroom remodeling, and I've honed it down to a specific pattern that I've just repeated over and over and over again. So I put my 10,000 hours in, and now I feel it's time to pass this knowledge on to you, and I'm hoping that you can get some value out of this. And this whole live stream deal that I'm trying to do, that I'm going to continue to promote, not only just my courses, but anything that I knew coming out. I love to put these live streams together because I think it gives you a lot more background than like a premeditated video of any sort. And my hope is that we can have some real interaction here. If you have any questions about your own bathroom, about your own project, I can pause the video and we can go through a little bit to make sure that you understand what's going on. Because really, it's all about getting input from you guys to explain on how things, basically what you're missing, what some of the things that I might find to be very simple, just because I've been doing it for so many years. I want to make sure that I can pass, explain things in a little bit more detail if needed. So Lou, thanks for joining me here tonight. So if the first part of this broadcast, I like to go through the recap of the entire project, of what we have up to this day. So again, it's a 7-day bathroom remodel. I guess you can't really see my hands in here. 7-day bathroom remodel, and I did it in real live. I did it in July of this last year, and it's just a basic bathroom. So it's just a 12 or a 5x8 bathroom. Let me shrink myself down here and show you what we're looking at. So basically, this bathroom. This was the estimate that I actually gave the client this summer before I started. But it's just a standard bathroom. It just has a tub, toilet, and a 30-inch vanity, 5 foot wide, which is the width of the tub, by 8 foot. So nothing special, but the biggest thing is that it was outdated. It was a 1970s home, completely gutted it, completely all the way down to the studs, and redid it. So and you'll hear me say this over and over again on these broadcasts, that I really think it's important. If you're going to put a lot of money, or if you're going to remodel your bathroom, take all the walls down. It's going to make everything easier. The time that it takes you to finish the little bit of drywall work that would be needed for a 5x8 bathroom will far outweigh the amount of time that and frustration, I should say, of trying to keep your existing walls and matching up with that. So Kevin, good to see you here. Thanks so much. So this is basically the actual estimate that I gave the client, and I just, we're going to go over this in a later live stream, but I just like to give this as a reference to anybody who might even be just looking into doing a bathroom remodeling and try to understand like how much they might actually save by doing this themselves. I mean, obviously it's a considerable amount, but I basically my estimates, I always highlight each area of exactly what I'm doing. For the most part, as far as like how I'm going to be waterproofing it, what kind of tub I'm going to be installing, the vent fans I have links to. This is all to keep communication between myself and the client very clear and straightforward, because these days, verbal agreements are loosely put together anymore. You really have to have things in writing that show exactly what you're going to be planning on doing. And when you're getting into bathroom remodeling, there's so many different ideas that people might have about what they want to do. They go to the tile shop. I don't know if I think it's a nationwide company. In every state they have the tile shop, but they usually have some really, really great displays, but the tile work gets really, really intricate. And so it's you have to spell out like what you're actually planning on doing or ahead of time before they come home with a whole bunch of marble that they want in a herringbone pattern or something like that. So I always like to be transparent on exactly what I'm doing with my clients. And I think if you're a younger contractor or a contractor that's getting into this, it's really important to communicate well with what you're using. But this is basically the cost with materials. Now, it did overrun in this project. I think we were closer to about $14,000, but this is Pittsburgh prices. So, you know, labor across the country is going to be different everywhere. So it's really hard to tell what you might be in Los Angeles compared to here. But the core materials, and I'll have a breakdown by the end of this entire project of this course, where I'm going to break down the materials as well. But typically on a standard bathroom, you're looking between $4,000 and $5,000 worth of materials. So you can save yourself well over $6,000 by doing this yourself. You should be able to, even if you don't have a lot of the equipment that you need, you'll be able to purchase some of those core tools. So that's basically the rundown of what the bathroom is. But we'll go ahead and do a recap. So if you've already been following along and you've been on these live streams, it's actually taking me longer and longer to explain what we have done up to this point. But I think it's important, even if you're have seen this before, I always kind of bring out new tips and things in this run through, but it's going to be about a 12-minute video that I'm going to be basically a speed through showing all the steps that we have up to this day, because I primarily breaking this course down to by the day. I just think it's the most efficient way to do it, because you need to have a goal of when you're going to finally get somewhere. So, you know, and I thought 7 days can work really well with a lot of people's schedule. So you'll see exactly what we've gotten into. Architectural, Alex, good to see you. Architectural sheet metal. Hey, if you guys want to do anything with sheet metal and metal roofing, check out that guy's channel there. It's really phenomenal. I'm actually going to be putting a metal roof on my own little garage studio, and I've been watching some of his stuff that's given me some tips, and hopefully I can implement them on my own roof. But he has a great channel. Be sure to check him out. And Lou, what were you saying? Over the years, I've done maybe 7 more models. The hardest thing for me is what to charge. Yeah, I mean, it's getting harder, man. It's really getting harder, because these prices on things are just all over the place. And, you know, you don't really want to give a client like your actual core list of materials and then say, hey, we're going to, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to, that's a tough thing. That is something I eventually want to do, is break that down, and actually just the feedback of the public, of you, Lou, or other contractors will help maybe put something together that makes sense for all of us to be able to know what to charge for. But the prices of things have really gotten out of hand lately, and has made it really tough on a lot of contractors. I think a lot of contractors are the ones that are eating some of these inflationary pricing, and we have to be careful, because we're not going to stay in business if we continue to do things for free in some ways. So, and hey, thanks, Alex. Yeah, please hit that like button on the way in here. That really helps out the algorithm, get things shooting out. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do that as well, because you'll get these notifications of these live streams. I try to get them out to 3 or 4 hours in advance, but really on this course, what I have done right now is what I'm showing you here. And I just thought it was important, rather than you buying into something that you really have no idea what might be behind that paywall. I think it's good to be transparent, because you'll find that a lot of the links and things that I have in here are going to be helpful, and you're going to want to get your hands hold of the links and make it easier for you. So let's get into the recap. And like I said, this is going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. So if you're watching this later and you're not in the live stream, you know, you can fast forward this if you want to, but I think it's important to kind of mentally go over what every step-by-step would be. So let's get this shrunk down here. Let's see here. I should have had this kind of placed here before I started here. So, okay. Thanks, Lou. Thanks for this like button. That definitely, you know, I hate having to ask to do that, and I hate having to ask to subscribe. I mean, it's, you know, the subscribing thing seems kind of weird and dumb, but, you know, it's all about getting that algorithm pushing the videos out. And without that, it just doesn't, you know, nothing gets out there if you don't press that like button. And that's why everybody, you know, is constantly asking you to do that. So anyways, let's go through this. I'm just going to kind of narrate over this, and I'll probably be pausing at some points just to go reiterate some highlighted points here. So this is the bathroom. This is a 1970s split entry home, traditional standard bathroom. As you can see, the beautiful wallpaper, very outdated fixtures. And you know what? Let me just go right back here. So when I first came in here, this is the first thing I noticed was this outlet being in an odd location. And I could see there was a junction box. The lady, the really nice woman that I worked for, she took down the mirror. I'm not sure why, but she had the mirror down when I looked at it, when I first looked at the job. And this is what I saw. So I already knew that there was some kind of additional electrical work that was probably done here that wasn't done correctly. So these are things that you notice when you remodel a lot of bathrooms when there's something up like that, especially in I don't think any contractor would normally put a outlet directly behind the faucet. That makes really no sense. Who wants to dangle their cords over their faucet? So that was like a number one point, but the wallpaper alone is enough to say, hey, this thing's getting completely gutted. You don't want to be spending your time trying to remove this stuff. It's a complete waste of time to do so. So then this is just a traditional tub surround that you would find in most of these homes, a steel tub and just 4x4 tiles. So the first thing you want to do is shut off that water. That's really important. You don't want to be messing around with any of these valves without shutting off the water. So in this, basically removing the vanity and the toilet's the first thing, so I can actually get some room in the bathroom to work with. So I go over about capping supplies. These are things that you want to have on hand before demo day so that you can get the water turned back on. If you're a contractor working for somebody, people are very anxious about not having the water in their homes. So you want to have the caps on to shut them off. And then the next step would be to try to remove the tub drain if you can. That's not always possible, but you want to remove that drain so that you don't get debris into the existing piping. So as you can see there, I just capped off my water supplies to my shower valve. And then at this point, I had the water back on and then moved on into the tub surround. Now, this is going to vary very greatly depending on what kind of home you have and whether this is a very easy removal, by the way. This was all on drywall. If you ever have anything on hardy backer or cement board, it's much, much more difficult to get rid of a lot of these different types of systems. So I got lucky here, but I kind of already knew that that's kind of the environment that I was going to be running into, because you can find out a lot of stuff by looking behind the actual tub. So when you open up that cavity in the back, it'll tell you a lot about what you're going to be in for. And I could tell that there was only drywall on the wall. So I know that the demo was going to be a simple process. But if you have cement board, hardy backer, or even worse is if you have a 1920s home where you have a big, thick mud bed walls, those things are really painful to remove. And I would never say that you're probably going to do that in 7 days. There's a lot of work into that demo. And then you'll probably, when you get a home that's like 1920s or before that, you're talking probably some outdated plumbing that needs to be replaced. You end up getting into a lot more in those, in that first week, just because of the age of the home. But this was, like I said, 1970s. So, you basically had copper piping. That's including the drains. And, this was very common just to put towel right over the top of that drywall. So tearing it out was really no problem at all. And then, removing the tub, it was just a steel tub. Now, you want to have a temporary light fixture if you don't have a window in the bathroom. So think about that. And these are all items that I always incorporate into my course so that you're prepared for that demo day. You want to get that light fixture in so you can keep on working. But as you can see, actually, look at that. So looking back at that, look at that big wires nest mess of wires there. I mean, nothing was tremendously dangerous there, but everything was connected together. You actually turned off the light switch, it turned off the outlets, and it just was it obviously was added additionally later on. Now, if you're getting into those homes that are in 1920s, you're probably going to have armor cable, maybe even some knob and tube. So again, when you're remodeling these really old homes, you end up getting into a lot more electrical and plumbing work. So, but this was just basically just a mess. I just had to untangle it and reroute basically what was there. But having those two light fixtures on either side of the mirror, That's a great lighting source, but when you have a 30-inch vanity and you're tucked into the corner, you really don't have too many options without getting a really small mirror to have that. So we wanted to rearrange that anyway. So again, even more reason to just tear all of that drywall out and redo it. So you don't want to mess around with too long with this electrical, you know, I mean, you want to just be able to get that temporary light fixture in because you want to try to keep on schedule with the goals of each day. So again, we're just removing everything. I also remove the ceiling as well because the first thing that I want to do after I get the demo of everything out of here is I want to put in that vent fan. And everything, it's obviously a heck of a lot easier when you have the ceiling removed to do that. Now, granted, if you have blown-in insulation, this is not a fun project. You know, I'm sorry if you have blown-in insulation and you're pulling down the ceiling. It's happened to me many, many times. If you can get up into the attic and move that stuff out of the way, great. If not, it's just going to all come down on you, and then you're going to have to just sweep it up and get rid of it. But this is something else you want to keep in mind. When you're ripping out a ceiling, most likely you're going to want to redo the insulation because most of the time in these older homes, they were just like R13. There wasn't really any R value. And you want to be able to get like, I mean, today's standards are like R49 or something like that. But even at just getting a standard R30 insulation is going to make a huge difference in that space. So removing that vent fan, a lot easier when you have everything removed. Hopefully, you know, this is another thing that you might not know until you get in there, but you might not even have a duct. There's a lot of homes where they just vented it straight into the attic, and you really want to get that humid, moist air out of that attic. So this is something else that you're not going to know until you actually tear everything out. So know that there are always things that, you know, I mean, even though I'm showing you this in 7 days, there are some things that could have taken me longer and made that go further. But my ultimate thought is that if you get into this course, you're going to be able to get a functional bathroom by the end of at the end of week 1, you know, for the most part. So that's if you're doing everything yourself. If you're going to try to hire out contractors in the middle of this, then obviously that's probably not going to happen. So one of my favorites is this Whisperline Panasonic vent fans. I think they're one of the best ones out there. I've probably installed 30, 40 of these things and have been really happy with them. So very quiet. I always kind of separate my light from my fan. I think that's a good idea just for to have the most volume out. And then I like to put my ceiling up. This is on the first day. So first day, getting that ceiling up. If you're a contractor working for a client, it reduces their anxiety because they don't see up into their attic and they're not worried about bats and mice and all that other stuff. So really, and also it's just mentally more, it makes it easier on me because then the next morning I can just focus on the tub and the plumbing. So having that ceiling all opened up, you know, I mean, it's just harder to, you know, I like to get a certain amount of done before lunch and then get a certain done after. So you'll see in basically when I describe a lot of this stuff, hey, I'm getting this done before lunch and then I'm doing this afterwards. You have to set your goals so you can actually get something done. You don't want to be, you know, hemming and hawing about different things because it's just going to prolong things. And everything about bathrooms, there is timing of, you know, setting flooring. The thin set needs to dry, the grout needs to dry, the paint needs to dry. So there's all these time references that you need to pay attention to, and you don't want to be wasting any time on electrical or other things that don't need to be done at that moment. You want to try to accomplish these goals each day, and that's kind of what I'm outlining in this course. And then at the end of the day, I'm just removing that vinyl floor. Again, that's another thing that can be completely different for what you have. You might have tile, and that's going to be a lot more difficult to remove than just that vinyl floor. Yeah, I mean, I am going to be adding more and more to this course to give different scenarios of what different ways, you know, different things that you might have commonly in your bathroom that you might have to remove. And then this is day 2. So moving on to day 2, the first thing you want to do is get rid of anything like this. If you see a drum trap, you're going to want to get rid of it. You're going to want to put a new trap on. And I would say that you're going to want to put a new trap on it regardless of what kind of system it is, because even if you have new PVC, it's just going to be easier to install the tub and adding on a new P-trap. And you'll see later on here why that is. But These drum traps, notorious for clogging. They're very difficult to snake for any plumbers. Most likely they're already slow draining, and maybe that's why you're actually remodeling your bathroom in the first place. But this is a brass one, and it has copper piping. If you see your copper piping, you want to inspect it. Make sure that there isn't a lot of excessive corrosion. A lot of the signs that make it look bad is like a white greenish tint, and you want to pay attention not just the top surface of it, but the bottom surface of that copper, because it could I've actually had some projects before where you can just take your hand and you can just squeeze that pipe together because everything was so brittle. But it wasn't leaking, but it was like, the copper was worn down to the point where it was going to start leaking at any moment. So you have to inspect your copper and plumbing, and you're going to want to replace some of that stuff if you have to. But first thing is to start out with the trap, and every situation is going to be different. So it's very difficult to explain or tell you exactly what you're going to be in for until you actually remove that tub. But that's where I'm going to help you out with this on this course. You can always post an image, and I could try to help give you the best advice that I can. So yeah, removing that trap, first thing, obviously a lot easier than putting the new tub in and then the dressing to that. So I'm adapting to that with just a Fernco, giving myself a little bit of room there, but you're going to want to dry fit the tub. Now, you dry fit tubs multiple times during the process. This is another reason why if you remove all of the drywall and all the stuff in the room, it makes this process of installing the tub much, much easier. If you're trying to keep existing walls in, you're going to be fighting yourself getting that tub in. You'll be worn out by midday, and you won't even have the tub in. So this being completely open, because most of the time bathrooms are built a little bit wider than the tub. So I would say most of the time you're about 60.5 inches or 61 inches wide, and the tub is 60 inches. So that half inch of room really makes a difference. But the biggest thing is having that drywall out where the tub lies is so much easier to slide it in and get it in and out of there. So, but the reason you want to dry fit this so many times is because you want to get the ledger board right where it wants to be. You want to make sure it's sitting properly, and you want to be able to evaluate where your drain location is. So there hasn't been a job that I haven't had to do that at least 3 times to double check where I'm at with things. And it can be exhausting. Some of these tubs are still heavy. I mean, if you're using a cast iron tub, you're probably not going to want to do it more than once. But even these Americast tubs that I'm installing, I mean, they're still 100 pounds. So they still take a lot of work and effort to do. But you want to put new subflooring down if you need it. In this particular situation, I needed to get a 3/4 inch piece to bring it up to the rest of the level. And then I finally put my Fernco on and got that all straightened out. Now I end up putting my trap arm in before I set the tub. But this is another reason that this is nice to be able to, when you're installing a tub, is to do the drain assembly before you actually set the tub. If you're working by yourself, it's very, very difficult to install a tub drain without somebody else's hand underneath holding things. So you can do this all with the tub standing up very easily compared to that. So, if you're working by yourself, put that drain assembly on the tub before you actually set it. And then I'm a big fan of silicone, so you'll see me in that. And, take this advice as somebody who has just done a lot of bathrooms. Plumbers have all types of arguments about this, but biggest thing is you want to pay attention to what the manufacturer says about the installation. If they're okay with silicone, then you're good to go. But there are some hardcore people that think that plumber's putty is the only way to go. But there are some newer tubs, acrylic tubs that don't want plumber's putty. It actually states on them that they want to use a new type of polyurethane sealant. I have a feeling in the future, not so far in the future, silicone is going to be kind of, there's going to be there's better products. There's better polyurethane type of sealants that are going to be stronger and longer lasting than the silicone. But I could be wrong. But for right now, silicone has been one of the best things for mounting this and sink drains and so on and so forth. So, but again, putting that tub drain together before you set the tub, a lot easier. And I show you all the tools that are kind of helpful to speed things up. There's my overflow. Overflow is just as important as the main drain because obviously water goes through that. And then you're dry fitting it again, making sure that ledger board is fitting properly. This could be frustrating. Sometimes there's a lot of times you have to keep moving that ledger board around to get it set straight. So this is where I'm going to put my trap arm in. I want to put that in because it's going to be easier to adapt and put that P-trap on the bottom of the tub. So this is where even if you did have newer plumbing like PVC or ABS, well, first off, let's go back there for a second. You want to install your tub. So this particular model was using these washers and screws. This was approved by American Standard. So you have to, really each specific tub has their own specific installations instructions. So what I'm showing here doesn't work for all of them. Some of them want you to drill through the flange. Some of them, just use a roofing nail. Different things, different ways for different size types of tubs. But in this particular situation, I used the washers. And this is where installing a new trap makes it easier because you can just literally slide it on, gluing it into place. This makes it so much easier than trying to set a drain assembly that's already attached to the tub and slide it into that perfect 1.5 inch area. So being able to grab this and glue it all at the same time makes it tremendously easy. And I do recommend doing the solvent welds, doing the glued in P-traps. There's really no reason that you should really have to disconnect that, and you can typically snake those pretty easily without having to actually take that trap apart. And to move right into the tub and shower faucet, this is day 2 again. And I just show you the most efficient way that I've found over the years to do it, and that's using the PEX. Now, in my course, I do have a lot of suggestions to make this even easier for you because you don't have to do soldering if you don't want to. I mean, it depends on your own situation and what you're adapting to, but as far as the actual connection to the valve, they do make valves that already have the plumbing port already attached to it, and then you can just connect your PEX to it. So there's always better, easier ways to do things, and every time I find something new, I want to, I'll add it into the course, but I do have some suggestions that makes this even faster and easier than what I'm showing you here. This is just the most common kit that you would get. This is a Delta shower faucet. I'm really usually very pleased with them. I've been using them for decades now, and nothing's really changed, or the customer service is still fairly good. So putting that tub and shower faucet together, and then the biggest thing is filling that tub up, testing everything, testing that overflow. You need to test that overflow. You don't want to get a call back 6 months because some kid filled that up and ended up using the overflow and then it's leaking. So this is moving on to third day. Third day is framing, blocking, getting the waterproofing in. But this is an area that if you take your extra time and make sure that everything's straight and even and plumb, it'll make your life easier on the rest of the project. So I'll show you here basically the way, you want to make sure when you're doing anything like tile on any type of wall, the flatter the surface, the easier it's going to be, especially if you're going to use something like subway tile or something small. You do subway tile, it just wants to curve with whatever what you're putting it on, and it's very difficult to space that out. Now, if you're using bigger tile like 12 by 24s, you can overcome an uneven wall fairly easy. So my rule of thumb is anything within 1/4 inch is good enough. You don't really have to address it if it's within 1/4 inch. If it goes over that, then you want to address it. You want to shim out the stud. You want to plane down the stud. You want to sister on a new stud to make it plumb. And so there's many different methods, and I'm hoping to get some more footage of the different scenarios in this. But using a straight edge and going across your studs, making sure they're all in a line with another, is a really important step, and it'll make the tiling process easier. So even if you're in a rush at this point, I still recommend just like slowing down a little bit and making sure that this framing is in good condition, because you're not going to get the chance later on. And you'll see that the waterproofing system that a lot of people are using are mostly foam board, and they need the straightness of each area. Now, again, you don't want to go overly crazy and try to be precise to the T. I think within 1/4 inch are good enough, and I think most homes, there's not too often I really have to adjust framing. It's really the old homes, the 1920s, 30s homes where they had rough cut lumber and plaster, because back then when they had plaster, they didn't really care how flat the wall was. They were making it up as they went with the plaster. So the newer homes with drywall typically are okay, but you have to be careful because even, you know, a lot of these cheaper homes that were built even 20 years ago, they just use fiberglass units, and the framers know that no one cares, because the tub surrounds or the shower surrounds are just going to be screwed into the board, and there's no reason, you know, there's no one's yelling at them, put it that way, about the straightness of their studs. So this is really where you want to take that extra mile and make this right. And then make sure you put nail plates on everything. I can't tell you how many times, and you'll actually see in me, I have a series of videos I'll probably be bringing out here in the next month, because I have about 4 bathrooms that I haven't even gotten into editing yet. But if you don't put nail plates on it, there's a good chance you'll end up putting a screw right into that plumbing or that electrical. So plumbing, these little plates are cheap, but trying to fix something after you did that is definitely not, and can take some extra time. So put those on there, and then as you can see here, I'm putting shims up so that I can allow my backer board to overcome the tub surround. So this is a nice and important step that makes it easier to, you know, basically waterproof the tub. So I ended up going all the way around the room with these. Again, this is the reason why if you take everything out, you take all all the wallboard out of the room, you can shim the entire thing. Now, like I said, most bathrooms that have tubs in them are wider than the actual tub. So this one was like 60.5 inches. So I needed a 1/2 inch material to fur out to overcome that tub. So going all the way around the room, and this is where you want to put some blocking in. So if you have towel bars and accessories, which I would imagine every bathroom does, you want to put some blocking in there. That's going to make it a lot easier for those towel bars to anchor into, and you won't be getting callbacks on that. Next step is putting in the drywall, hanging the rest of the drywall. This is before lunch, by the way, on day 3. And then you want to put that first coat in afterwards. So I go over all the tools and methods of making this easy. Now the drywall finishing, you know, I go over it. You know, I've done thousands of sheets of drywall, but I wouldn't say that there's a lot more that I can learn. I've been learning from actually other people online correcting me on things. So I'm going to implement a lot of things in the future on that. But, you know, really the mudding, don't be afraid of it. You know, I know a lot of people don't want to rip out all the existing walls in their bathroom because they're afraid that it's going to take them too long to do this. But I assure you, you'll be able to accomplish this, you know, because, you know, you can't really screw up. You can always sand it down and apply some more mud and get it better. But I do go over some of the important key points of, you know, making sure that there's mud behind all of the tape. If you have any bald spot anywhere, it's going to bubble up and cause problems. So, but yeah, first coat's pretty easy. You get to practice on that first coat pretty much. But yeah, you want to do that because the timing of getting this bathroom painted and everything is important too. So you really want to get your first coat on that third day. Always wipe out your bucket. That's really important too. And then this is day 4. Okay, so day 4, we're getting into the tile layout. This is when you actually want to start thinking about the tile layout. It gives your brain a little bit of time to really mull it over. You might sleep on it and think of something new or better that you can do. So it's a good idea at this stage, because right now I'm basically putting in a recessed niche here. So I needed to know not exactly where my niche needed to be as far as height, but I'm just trying to avoid slivers. So you want to think about what your tile layer is at this point so that you can adjust. Now, when you're framing a niche, I really recommend you make the niche bigger than what you actually want it to be. Make it an inch bigger than what you need it. You can always build up the tile layer to meet your tile joint where you want it. You can't expand the niche. So this is, again, it's important to kind of reference and figure out, like, where's my shower rod going to be? You know, where is my decorative border? Where do I want that to be? So these are all things that I really can't give you an answer for, other than just giving you some tips on, you know, avoiding some, you know, common mistakes and things that are going to make it a lot harder on you. So laser level really is going to help you out with this too on the layout, because, you know, I at this stage I always reference the client, because I want to make sure that they I usually have images of what I'm going to do, but you know, it helps to have a laser to shoot it across the room and say, hey, this is where your border is going to be. Is that okay? Or this is where your niche height's going to be. Does that look okay? So it's a good, you know, I think a laser is one of those must-haves for any type of project like this, especially when you're getting into the tile work. It really helps you get everything lined up. So here I'm framing out that niche. I like these corner niches a lot in tub surrounds because I think it's a convenient place to put your stuff, and that your soap dishes and everything are not, they're kind of tucked away, and you don't really focus on it when you walk in. But again, using a straight edge to keep everything in line with another is important. So pitch that first board, and then we get right into the waterproofing. So this is one of my favorite waterproofing systems that I use, and it's called Go Board. It's a foam board, and it's a sealant application of basically sealing and waterproofing the tub surround. Just easy because there's no dust. It's nothing like cement board or hardy backer used to be. Cut everything with a utility knife. You just have to follow the steps of what the manufacturer wants you to install it. But and really, it's a fairly inexpensive product too. $25 a sheet, waterproof. Like I said, that's the most important thing that you need. But every application or every seam or every adjoining piece has to have that sealant, so that's where you want to make sure you have plenty of sealant, and then you can make custom niches out of this. This is really great for niches, especially in something like this right here in the front. Water's going to be hitting off the shower head and hitting right into that niche. That niche has to be 100% waterproof. You have to be waterproof in any type of recess like that. So this is a great way to do it. Really easy with the sealant application, and then just further going on with the foam board around the tub. Now, this particular situation with the tub, I ended up having to fill in the tub gap because I had a door that obviously exited the bathroom, and I didn't want to put extension jambs on the inside of the door jamb. So this whole wall needed to be, the 1/2-inch drywall had to be on the actual studs, so I wasn't furring it out and allowing that board to overhang. So I'll leave that into the course details, or you can go look at an earlier live stream to see exactly why I had to do that. But there's different methods of addressing the tub flange. And then you just use a lot of sealant. So you always have to make sure you have plenty of sealant for any of this, especially with these big niches. I mean, I probably used an entire tube just to waterproof all that as well. So you can see 100% waterproof, good to go. And then rule of thumb on this is basically just 1-inch overlap around all the screws with the sealant. But really, at the end of this day, this is day, this is day 3. Did I say day 3? Yeah. I need to highlight that. I'm sorry. Day 3. This is day 3 because day 4, I'm tiling. Day 3, I'm still in the waterproofing stage. So day 3, I apologize. So day 3, this is really, you could use this tub if you really wanted to. You could put the cartridge in the shower faucet, put a shower head on. So if you really had a hard time and this is the only bathroom in your home and you only had a week and that's all you got done, it's actually good enough because really the tiling part of it is just a decorative part. All the waterproofing under here is what's important. So you could temporarily put your toilet back in and get a shower curtain on here and actually use this shower at this point. That's why I'm thinking, or I feel that, if you follow my course, you'll definitely be able to have a semi-functional bathroom. Now, I hate to see you do that because, motivation's ruined by using it, I think. But technically after this waterproofing, you would be good to go. So sealing around the tub flange and making sure that there's waterproofing alongside the tub is really important. That's a common area for damage from water damage, and then making sure that you put a pipe seal around that tub spout because most tub spouts do not have any type of seal to the tile. It's literally just kind of sitting, resting again. You'll find a lot of homes will have silicone all the way around that tub spout. So these little Schluter pipe seals really help out with that. It gives that rubber gasket around that pipe, and then you have your waterproof system. Okay, I did not realize I had the sound still. Oh, okay. So moving on to this day. Okay, so this is day 4. Sorry, this is day 4. Move on to the waterproofing of the floor. Now, I did do this at the first beginning of the day. This could be done in any order as far as that go, but my original goal was to get the floor down on this day, and that just didn't happen because of the tile work that I had going on in the background. But you can put this Ditra down at any moment. It doesn't really matter. And honestly, you can even wait, you can actually install Ditra and then set tile directly after you have it set. So you don't really, this isn't like a pressing issue, but this is just what I planned on focusing on first thing in the morning. So always check your Ditra mat, make sure it has good coverage, especially if you haven't really used it before. It's really important to make sure it's well bonded. And as you can see, the thin set is a very loose mix. That's really important for adhering Schluter membranes. And this is the way you want to waterproof it against the tub. It's basically using the Curdy membranes and sealing it up to that tub. Now, I go the extra mile on this one, and I think it's a good idea. And that's just to seal all the corners of the room as well, because then you don't have any leakage going in behind the tiles in any way. Now, obviously, you're going to have base trim over top of that, so it's not a big deal. But waterproofing the entire floor in a bathroom, I think, makes a lot of sense and should last a very long time that way. Then we move on to the tiling. So this, again, you're going to go into the layout. I have a lot of great details in this course about laying out the tile. Now, every situation is different, but I think the topics will basically work on any type of pattern. But again, having that laser, figuring out the center points, and then really just I give you a lot of exit strategies on tiling that will keep you from having slivers. You always want to have an exit strategy when you're tiling, just in case that what you planned on being was going to work, and if it didn't, it didn't. So, it's just from experience. You just learn the hard way sometimes, where you end up with that 1-inch sliver. What could I have done differently? What could I have done to make this easier for you? What could I have talked the client into that would have made it, gave me a little safety net? For instance, like the border that they want. Maybe I have them order an extra sheet of that mosaic so I can make a wider border. Maybe I just need that 1/2 inch. So you just add one more layer of the strip, and no one's going to notice the difference, and it works out great. It makes me look like I did a perfect job. So there's things that you can do to keep yourself from having problems. I feel like sometimes carpentry, contracting, everything, you as the installer can be the worst thing. You're basically getting in your own way. So, it's about correcting some of the mistakes that you might have and getting better at it. But, I really do try to highlight some of these ideas or ways to get about this so that you're not so frustrated with it. Because I really feel like the tiling part should be the fun part of the project. So laying it out with the laser, I always recommend do not start your tile. I wonder why I blanked out there. I gotta go do some more editing here. I'm doing this too quickly. But always go your first row of tile being less than a full tile so you can scribe cut it. And then this is going over just making sure that you have the right trowel size for the tile that you're installing. You always want to check coverage. This is important to make sure that your tile is going to be well bonded. And I really give you some great tips on the thin sets that I've really found to be the easiest and best stuff. If you haven't done a whole lot of tile, you're going to want something that's going to last a long time in the bucket. You're not going to, some of these thin sets you buy from Home Depot or Lowe's, they can be hardened in an hour, and you probably need longer than an hour to set a lot of this tile. So I really highly recommend these Ardex products because they do last a long time. And I have not found anything that's quite comparable to it. People keep coming out with, or different manufacturers come out with stuff saying they're comparing it to X5 or X77. I have not found anything yet that quite has been as good as that. But anyways, a lot of tips about thin sets and mixing and all of that. And then these spacer clips are really nice and easy. These horseshoe shims really makes it easy to, much easier than those rubber spacers. And then we just start tiling that back wall. I always recommend doing that back wall first so that you can hide the grout joint from your visual view in the corner, because you want to leave a little bit of space in those corners for expansion and contraction of the wall. Now, I like to go all the way right into my niche. You want to cut your shelving unit that you might have it. I had some quartz that I was making for that. So getting that all prepared. But if you lay out things, it really makes it easy. So as you can see, like even the way I did this niche, it was able to get, full pieces. I didn't have to cut two sides of the tile to get my shelf where I needed to be. I could be right on this grout joint and have my shelf where I need it. So planning ahead. Now this is 6x6s. I don't know if, I like 6x6s. I think they've always been, it's not even that expensive. For this tub surround, I think was maybe $300 worth of tile. And I thought it looked fantastic, but, it all depends on the type of style you're going with. But planning ahead, for your niche will make, the amount of cuts and everything you do a lot easier as well. And then you move on to the sidewall. Again, this is day 4, putting that sidewall up. Again, starting out with a less than a full tile. And I tell you what, the other reason that you want to have less than a full tile, see how that tile right here at the edge kind of curves around the tub rim? If you started out with a full tile, you'd have an ugly corner piece there. So this is kind of what separates the DIYer from a professional to a certain extent, is all these little details. So curving that tile around the edge of that tub looks so much better. And you want to keep space between your first row of tile and the tub as well, because that tub, if it's acrylic, it doesn't really matter what tub it is. You need a joint there so that you can get caulking that will go into that joint and create a really nice strong joint. So keep on further going up the wall. Boy, I'm already 45 minutes in explaining this. Sorry about that. But anyways, at this point, this is where I end it for the project of day 4, because I want to get my border set up and be able to go in here into day 5. So cleaning the towel, you can actually start cleaning that towel 3 or 4 hours after you set the tile, especially with this Ardex. It's much easier to clean all that thin set before it's completely cured. But I'm going to move on to doing the second coat of drywall mud. This is important for timing issues to get the room painted. So you want to do a light sand and put that second coat on everything. And then moving on to the tile floor layout. Now, if you really wanted to make a long day out of it, you can actually get that floor set on day 4. But at least if you have things cut, laid out, then you're going to be prepared for day 5 and make it. I feel like day 5 is kind of like an easy day, because you have you're already in the motion of setting tile, and you have kind of everything set up to a certain extent. So this is my method of cutting out toilet flanges. I really like these STL blades, and I obviously have a whole bunch of links in my course giving you a description of what I use. But a lot of times for floors, you just need a towel cutter and a grinder. You don't really need a wet saw for most tile floors. And then this is going to make this day 5 a lot easier, is getting this mosaic prepped. So a lot of these mosaic these days are getting very, very thin in nature, and are very difficult to install because they're so thin and they're brittle. They kind of almost fall apart. So if you set these on a piece of Kerdi membrane the night before, this is going to, number one, eliminate you having to have a difficult time getting it lined up with your towel and having thin set oozing through all the joints. That's probably the primary reason I use it that way. But it's giving you more stability to these borders. It's disappointing, but all these newer borders these days are getting so thin. And I'm obviously to save on material and give you at a lower cost, but it makes it harder for the installer. But yeah, if you set this up the night before, it's going to make it a lot easier and quicker for you. So I go over the methods of installing it. You do kind of want a loose mix on that thin set for this as well. And you just set them all in place, and then it'll be ready to go for the next day. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. This is what our end product looks like. This is what we're trying to achieve here. So, yeah, so great. So, boy, that recap does take a long time, doesn't it? John, Elgin, Illinois, good to see you, pal. Thanks for coming. Let me get on my other. Okay. So how would I? Okay, so Troy, you were asking me how do I know if the thin set on Ditra is too thick? Really, it's about pulling up that Ditra mat and seeing if there's any if it's bonding to the actual fleece. You're not gonna be able to tell it now after you have it set. But really, like I always say that you should be able to almost pour the thin set out of the bucket when you're applying Ditra or any of the Schluter membranes down. That is the number one reason why there's any issues with Schluter products, the Kerdi band or the Schluter Ditra for that matter. And that's because the thin set wasn't thin enough and it's not, kind of adhering to the backing of that Ditra mat. Super runny, I guess. Yeah, it doesn't have to be super runny. I mean, it doesn't have to pour out of the bucket, but as long as I mean, again, the best way to go about it is really just to pull up part of your mat and check it out. So anyways, let's get into this form because I just took 45 minutes to explain what we got to today. So again, if you're watching this on live stream or later on, you could have fast forwarded all that, but let's get into this. So this is what course is going to look like. Again, this is bathroomremodeling.teachable.com. I have the link in the comments here, and then I have it in the description as well. So for right now, I am selling this at a very low price of $25. I just want to get people into the course. I'm up to day 5 now. And once I have this course completed, it definitely is going to go up in price. But really, I'm looking for feedback. I'm looking for people to join because the more common questions I get, the better I can make this course. And I don't really feel I'm going to make it like super expensive because ultimately, I think what I'll eventually have is I have a whole bunch of different things on this teachable site. And you can buy a bundle package of it all, or I'll be able to do some more intense or more help by doing FaceTime and different things on your own project, which would be getting into like a coaching plan of some sort. So anyways, that's future projects. Right now, let's just focus on this tub and shower faucet. But as you could see in that recap is basically doing everything from the beginnings of demo to installing the tub surround, hanging drywall, grouting, all of that. So what's really great about this course, or what I love about this platform, and that it's hard to compare this to YouTube because this has so many other features that can keep you organized. So as you can see, I have it laid out by day on each section of what to do. So this is going to help you keep you organized to get a lot of this stuff done. And in each one of these, I have a description that's going to simplify it and break things down and give you links and stuff that can help you out. So I have it in a daily format. So there's day 4 and day 5. So let's get into day 5. And as you can see on here on the left-hand side here, it kind of keeps everything together here as well. So if you didn't watch the full video, it'll kind of highlight that you didn't watch the thing all the way through. But I think what's really helpful is that I'm basically giving you a lot of information down below that kind of recaps things so that you don't have to be watching the video over again. So let's just go into my intro. If you have already seen the trailer, then you already have seen what's going to go on for day 5. But I just like to give a quick intro to what we're going to be doing. Okay, so day 5. Hopefully you strengthened those tiling muscles and you got used to using the thin set and adhering all that tile. So you should be able to pick up right where you left off yesterday and finish the rest of the tile. And then another important key point is to do the 3rd coat of mud so that things can dry properly for day 6. So that's it. I mean, day 5, I feel like is an easy day because you already kind of know what you're in for, because whatever you didn't finish the day before, you can just work right on top of that. So goals of the day, pretty straightforward. Tiling that plumbing wall, getting that niche and everything tiled as well, setting the mosaic border. Again, having that set on that membrane the night before is going to make it a lot easier for you getting that 3rd coat of mud on there. That's going to be important too. If you want to get this thing painted and done by the end of the week, you want to get that 3rd coat on so it dries, and then setting that actual floor. So today, usually day 5 for me, I'm usually out kind of early after the floor because a lot of this stuff usually goes fairly quickly, especially after a day of tiling. You're kind of in it, you're kind of flowing at that point. But then at the bottom, I have all these great links that basically highlight everything I'm using. And then if you haven't seen the course before, you can always ask me a question down here, add a picture of your problem. And really this is where I'm hoping this turns into a forum that stays here forever, so that, when new people come in, they could see different situations and different explanations of how things are done, rather than going through the sewer of YouTube comments and things. I think this will be more tame and to the point, and a lot more informative, put it that way. So moving on to the tiling the plumbing wall. So and most of my videos are not very lengthy. I really get to the point. I don't see the reason to belaboring small details or taking up a lot of time for things. Because my thoughts are is if you're doing a bathroom remodel, you probably have done other home projects and you kind of know where your hands are on things. So there's no point in belaboring a lot of simple things. So tiling it, let's get into this. Okay, so same concept on the plumbing wall, nothing different than this opposite wall, just mirroring that same concept, just running the bullnose down the edge of the tub, and then just trying to keep that pattern in the corner to look like the tile is bending in the corner. Again, just to reiterate, I personally, it's personal preference, but I personally don't like having two smaller tiles together in the corner. I like to offset them so it just looks like one tile folding in the corner. But it is personal preference. There isn't any right or wrong. It's just what looks good to you. So we're going to be going in this plumbing wall, lots of different features going on here, but we got our niche to redo. We have our niche of tile at the same time of all of this. But first thing is, let's get this first row straightened out. So at this point, you kind of know the drill. You're basically just making sure that that first row is 100% level and making sure that you're keeping an eye on that laser. Can't express that enough. This is the time. This is where you really want to spend that time on that first row, because everything else after this becomes a lot easier if you do that. So I just like to use a grinder. Now I did create quite a bit of dust here with what I was doing. So definitely close that bathroom door or try to eliminate, or even maybe even put on your vent fan so you can get some of that dust out of the area. But just maintaining that 16th inch grout joint at the tub is important, and just following your laser. So pretty common pattern here that you've been doing all day yesterday and today. Now, one thing I want to do mention is that all these pieces, these 3-inch pieces on the left side there, I do like to cut them all on the wet saw, because you can get some nice clean cuts and you can cut multiple cuts. So that's where a wet saw is nice. Cutting around the excussion or the valve, you just want to make sure that excussion plate covers. You usually have a lot of allowance for it, but always have that on hand just to double check. But hey, be sure to you wear a respirator and safety glasses. Okay, so for the bottom sill, a regular 6x6 is going to require a joint in between here. So what I always like to do is buy a couple pieces of something larger in this same style. So this is just a 4x12 piece, so I can get a solid surface on my sill. So we're going to go ahead and put the sill in, put the backing up, get our shelves in, and then we'll bullnose around so that we can have an indication of where to cut the tile against this bullnose. So let's go ahead and... So yeah, that's something you definitely want to plan ahead on. By 7. Very common problem with subway tile is not having a big enough piece for that sill. And you really don't want a grout joint on that horizontal surface. You really want to have a solid piece. So just pitch that. Okay, so starting out with your sill plate, make sure that that's pitching towards the shower, and then you can go ahead and start putting your mosaics in. Now, in this instance, I just went ahead and continued with my 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch trowel to notch and put the thin set on the background, and then make sure you use a float to put it in. But one quick tip, if you cut your mosaics on a wet saw, you need to make sure that you dry that off. The water will actually become a bond breaker, so you want to dry that off before you set them in place, and then you go ahead and put your side pieces in and top shelf. Okay, so then I would make sure that this tile here is just slightly proud so that you can make a nice joint with your bullnose. If this is recessed in, you're going to have a nice big grout joint against your bullnose. So if you have this just slightly proud, it'd be best for the installation of your bullnose. Okay, so just put a little bit of thin set in there. And we'll stick our shelf in. Okay, so then the rest of the niche is kind of the rinse, dry, and repeat. So basically putting that mosaic in the background and then putting your side pieces on and then inserting the shelf. Just make sure all those shelves are pitching towards the shower. I know that's a really simple concept, but if you forget to do it, you really can't do it later. So as you can see, all of that's embedded. This just takes a little bit of time, making sure that the thin set gets out of those joints. So there's a lot of cleanup during that whole process. But just take your time, and then you can go ahead and start using the bullnose pieces. I like to cut those on the wet saw. It makes it a nicer, cleaner cut. So that is one thing for some of this intricate stuff is using a wet saw. It really makes a big difference. But the grinder, for the most part, can get a lot of this done. This has actually took me a couple of tries to get this to look correctly. So just know that you are going to go through a little bit of waste installing this. You know, make sure that you don't have the thin set sitting on the wall too long, though. Again, the rule of thumb is about 10 minutes, and then you're going to have to scrape that thin set off and put some new stuff on. You know, all these intricate cuts do take some time, so be careful about how much thin set you're spreading and making sure it's still well bonded. And you can just continue to work up the wall. As you can see, this is kind of a messy process, you know, but you'll get it done, and you can always clean out those joints fairly easy.
I need to get better at that
with a linoleum knife and a sponge.
I am a mess.
But try to space things. This is something that might take you a couple tries to get everything configured correctly, but once you get that bullnose edging around that niche, it's fairly straightforward as far as installing the rest of the tile, just maintaining those grout joints. So I always bring that laser up to about every other row or so, just to keep myself level. You know, that's really important to continue to keep that straight and looking good. And then, you know, there you go. You want to check out the coverage. My thin set was getting a little dry. I wanted to make sure I was still getting good coverage. So it's not a bad idea to pull the tile off every now and again and check that. So we just finished that off, and then we're going to move on to actually installing the mosaic border. So this was definitely, with the niche, is going to take you a few hours to complete. But then, you know, right after lunch, we can go ahead and set this border in place. Okay, so I didn't have too much explaining to do on top of what I did there today. I did put that together today, so that's you know, I don't want to interrupt myself here. So yeah, then down below, so you don't have to watch a 7-minute video again. And say if you know, I'm really hoping that if you buy the course, you're watching this way in time, you know, before you're actually installing this stuff. You know, I think that's another reason that people don't get things done, because if they had a, you know, if they have a question, they're sitting on YouTube and trying to figure out answers and stuff. So I'm hoping, you know, if you're going to do a bathroom remodel, you get into this, watch this stuff way ahead of time. But you don't have to watch it all over again during the process. You can just go down below here, and I'm going to give you the highlights of what to go about it. Now, this is day 5, so you are pro now at this point, because you spent that whole day tiling the day before. But I have references for lasers. You know, all these highlighted areas are just links to Amazon or whatever for a laser that I would recommend. And no, I'm not saying that everything on Amazon is the way to go. It's just a reference point of some of the things that I use. So set the laser and maintain that first row. Spend your time on that first row. It's really important to make that level. It's going to make everything else easy. And as you can see, I'm highlighting the point of curving, making that first tile curve around that tub rim. That makes it look a lot nicer. And then make sure you have that escutcheon plate on hand. Most of the time, if you just go tight to the actual valve seal on there, you're going to be fine. But it's not a bad idea to have this on hand. Make sure that your cuts are within reason and that they're going to cover by the escutcheon plate. And then you want to set that sill first. Again, you want to make sure that you might buy a larger piece of tile for this. This is probably the only part of the project that it's really important to have no grout joints in. So if you're doing subway tile, make sure you find something that's going to be bigger than just a 3x6 so that you can actually get that bottom sill looking nice. You know, there's nothing worse than having a grout joint right in the middle of that, because it's always going to get slimed over with shampoo or whatever, and then it's harder to clean. So these are things to think about ahead of time, and it'll make your life easier. And then we just go into setting the mosaics after you set that sill. So, you know, kind of basic overview of the organization of doing it. Setting the shelf. Now these were quartz shelves, so this was like a quartz why am I saying that wrong? Quartz sill, and you're able to just cut it down into pieces. So this is just something I found at Home Depot. Actually, it was very thin. It was only like a 1/2 inch thin. So I thought the shelving looked pretty well for this, and it was not really that expensive. Then you move on to setting your mosaics. Again, very important to dry off those mosaics. If you cut it on the wet saw, that water actually will be a bond breaker to the thin set. It might not bond very well, so make sure you dry off anything you put into the wet saw when you're setting things. Set the second shelf and move on to finishing that off. Setting the bull nose. Now, obviously, there's many different ways about edging things. This just happened to be more of a traditional type of tub surround, but there's a lot of Schluter edging that you can use for this, metal edging. So, you know, but basically the process in some way is fairly similar, but I do have a lot of videos on YouTube that demonstrate this. So if I get a lot of questions in this like particular section about, hey, I'm not using bullnose, can you show me how to do this? I'll add some videos on there about the Schluter Rondeck, and actually thinking about it, I might just do that anyways, because not everyone's going to be using bullnose. There's a lot of new tile out there now. They don't even give you options for edging. You have to find your own edging. So very common these days not to find an edging. And then you want to support that top area if you need to temporarily, so that it can, you know, set and dry and not sag down on you. And always check coverage. So if you're questioning, hey, my thin set's not feeling, it's kind of thick now, I can't really do anything with it, pull out a tile, see what it looks like. This is the way you want it to look. You want to see it kind of suctioning off like that. And then again, all the helpful tools and different suggestions I have here for that. So let's see if I have any questions here in the chat. I can't see on my own thing here. Lou, thanks, man. Yeah, these are 16th inch spacers, channel marker. I like those horseshoe shims. So let me just show you here. I have it in the list on here. So 16th inch grout or horseshoe spacers. So this is from Amazon. It's $10. You can just buy one. You probably only need 100 of these for a tub surround, and you can reuse them too. So, but these are really great, much easier than those rubber spacers. And then I have a lot of suggestions for the grinder blades and everything else that I use. So, yeah. Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure I didn't have any other questions there. So moving on to setting the mosaic. So this is going to be a quick demo on this, but this is really easy. This is just like setting a regular piece of tile now that I have the membrane on the back. So really quickens this, makes it so much easier, because now I can line up my tile with the border. There's nothing worse than seeing a border sunken in a tub surround. It just shows like amateur level installation. So having your border even with your tile is definitely the way to go. Okay, so time for the border, and this is really going to make it a simple process since we had everything set the night before. Just simply remove the excess curdy band off of either side of that border and then cut it to fit the size of where your border is going to be. So again, always using directional troweling when you're installing this, and you'll be able to just take this and put it all in one large piece. Now that 5-foot area does take is a little bit delicate because it's such a long piece, and but as long as everything, you know, is intact and on the sheet, you should be in good shape. So this really makes it easy because nothing oozes out from the in between any of those grout joints. So yeah, you can add as much thin set behind it as you want, just like any tile, and then you can use the horseshoe shims to space out the border. Because I tell you what, even with this subway tile, this is not that thick. This is only 1/4 inch material pretty much, and that what do you call it? The mosaic here was about an 1/8 inch, maybe 3/16 inch. So where you really have trouble is like if you're using 12 by 24s or anything that's like thicker tile, you're going to be way sunken in there. So this is going to make it so much easier, because then you can just use a bigger notch trowel, or you can back butter it. Now it was a challenge getting this 5-foot piece up because it's so flimsy and small, but you know, as long as you can, you know, you can handle, you know, bringing it up over your head, you should be okay. So, but I do like to have this full 5-foot piece cut like that. And right here, I'm just removing the excess thin set because I want to put the rest of the border on before moving on to the rest of the shower tile up to the ceiling. So you can see how nice and easy that makes it, just having it as a full sheet, just embedded in. You can apply as much thin set as you need in order to get that border out to place. So really makes a nice, simple installation. And it's just a matter of paying attention to the details, making sure those grout joints stay even, and then again just cleaning up everything. And we're gonna just go ahead and move on to the actual rest of the tile. So the rest of this is pretty much just going along with the same pattern as before, and then scribe cutting towards the ceiling. So again, the laser keeps you in line, and as you can see, those horseshoe shims again really make it easy to place things and get them all set into place. And as you can see, I had that laser set on the vertical setting so that I can line up my grout joints and make sure that they are even throughout. Now up at the ceiling, you do want to keep an expansion contraction joint up there as well. This is also another area where caulking that corner up at the top, it's best to have a gap so that the caulking lasts a very long time. And we'll be showing that into a later video, but we'll be using a siliconized latex caulk for that ceiling. So maintain a good 16th inch gap at the ceiling, and you should be good to go for that. And this is the last bit of that tub surround, so just installing that. And did get pretty fortunate on this shower. I didn't have any holes to actually cut. Everything was a notch around the plumbing, so that kind of, sometimes you luck out. The 6x6s tend to have that type of thing, but then this is just finishing off that bullnose going along the bottom of the tub. And you just want to make sure you have a super duper cleaning. Make sure that you get all that thin set off of that tile, and you'll be ready to set for grout the next day. So the next video is going to be on tiling the floor. So that makes it really nice and easy there. I keep saying that, but I've been tiling for a long time, and I always fought these mosaics, and it wasn't until a friend of mine, or a YouTube friend of mine, Sal DeBlasi, he demonstrated this, and I was like, wow, that's a really great idea. I don't know why I haven't been doing that. So probably, I don't know when he did that. Maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago, but I started doing that, made a huge difference. So I got links to the Curdy membrane if you need it. Most of the time you can just buy the stuff at Home Depot or wherever. But then again, I'm just going through the highlights so you can quickly just move on with the project. And yeah, so I don't need to reference everything that we just went through, but this is just for helping you keep organized in your mental state, because I know it can get frustrating if things don't work out for you, and you just kind of want to reference, hey, what do I need to do next to move forward? Getting these scrubby pads are an important thing. It helps get all that thin set off of there. And then again, I have my full list of stuff down here below. So getting into the third coat of drywall mud. Let me see if I had any questions on that last one before I go here. Oh, okay, Troy, yeah, you're saying a 200 pack on the horseshoe shim. That's good. Yeah, that's definitely, you'll have no problem doing all the tile work you need there. So this is another 3-minute video. This is drywall finishing that third coat. Okay, so moving on to the third coat. This is, again, an important step because it needs to dry so that the following day you can do some final touch-ups and get ready for priming and painting. But yeah, day 5, really important to get that third coat on. And what I like to use are just one of these sanding sponges. You don't need any major drywall sanding machine or anything like that, but just these 3M with the beveled edges. They're kind of nice. It allows you to get in the corner nicely. It's just kind of a messy job at this point. This is the biggest sanding portion of the whole job. But you just want to basically knock things down smooth, and then you'll be able to start coating the other side of the corners, and then you can address any other imperfections that you see on the main seams. I wish I was that fast in real life, but you want to definitely be able to get a coat of mud on that Schluter edge as well. And yeah, basically just feeling. And so it is kind of a lot easier to do the seams here on the walls. Your blade is able to just kind of tuck up into that corner really nicely. But again, don't play around with it too much. If you get a little bit on the ceiling, you're going to be able to scrape that off the next morning. So just try to focus on getting a nice smooth corner edge. And like I said, if you get anything on the ceiling, that'll all scrape off and sand the next morning. Okay, so over the Schluter edging that's coming over here, you can just simply just mud it like as if it was a piece of drywall tape. And I kind of like this for a couple of reasons. One, it's waterproof, all, you know, everything underneath the towel and over, but also it kind of builds it up a little bit so you don't have too much of a, you know, if you have a space out any of your tile, it makes it nice and it makes a nice joint. All right, and any of this stuff hanging on, I would just leave alone. That can just be addressed after it dries. You don't want to worry about those chunks on the actual pieces of tile. Those you can wipe off really easily after it dries. Because you'll drive yourself nuts trying to get that off of there and keeping the mud from being nice and smooth there. Okay, so then over the flat seams again, you want to just take a little bit of mud and just address any of those imperfections. And at this point on the third coat on those straight seams, you're putting a lot of pressure on that blade and pulling basically everything off. It's just to touch up things and just getting those little imperfections out of the way. So we're going to be moving on to the next step, installing the tile floor. Okay, so that was third coat. Now, you know, usually the next day I still have some touch up. So really it's like 4 coats for me. But, you know, even if it takes you 5 or 6, it's not the end of the world. You can just keep building things up until it. So again, reference point, getting those 3M blocks. Again, you could get this all at like your local store or whatever. But I really like the ones with the beveled edges. They work out great. And then, yeah, so just got helpful links in there. Just kind of going over the basics of what we just went over. And then you know, anytime I find a decent deal I put on here too, because I thought these were really reasonable, these DeWalt, for $80 to have your whole set. I think that's pretty reasonable. So got that link in there for you. And then we'll just move on to the tile floor. Boy, I'm already on here for how long we been here? An hour and 16. Okay, it's not too bad. We're doing all right. Again, if anybody in the live chat has a question in the middle of this, be sure to ask. I can stop and address any of your questions, but we're going to get right into the setting the floor. This is going to make it a lot easier because we actually did the big part of the layout yesterday or the day before, so you should be able to just get right into setting it and be done for the day. Okay, so we're going to install our floor tile. With bigger tile, you always kind of want to go with bigger trowel sizes for coverage, but really it all depends on what kind of coverage you're actually getting. But I've had really good luck with just a 3/8 by 3/8 U-notch trowel. That works pretty well for me, but you can go with 3/8 by 1/2 inch or even 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. But if you have a fairly flat floor, 3/8 usually works, but you always want to double check that when you're actually installing it. So any other couple of things with the larger tile, we're going to be using a wedge and clip system. So these clips kind of hold everything together. It's called T-lock. I do highly recommend a leveling system. It's going to tremendously make it easier for you to install the tile. So let's go ahead and get started here. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is just fill in that Ditra waffle. This is really important to make sure that the entire cavities are filled so that the uncoupling membrane works efficiently when setting on the tile. This also will make the ridge lines that you do for directional troweling, and it'll come out a lot nicer. So make sure you fill that all in. You can actually use a grout float to fill in the waffle if you wanted to at first, and then just apply the thin set like this in a directional pattern. But you can see how the ridge lines become very nice and clean, and that all the waffle, you don't really see much of the orange anymore. Okay, then you definitely want to back butter these larger tiles. Just using the flat side of the trowel and getting that whole back covered. So yeah, just moving those tiles around a little bit, collapse those ridges, will get you a nice flat floor. And then we really did highlight a lot of stuff in the tile. Okay, so then you can go ahead and put your clips in. Typically 3 per side on a 24-inch tile usually works, but you can use as many clips as it takes. You know, really the important part of using these clips is just making sure that tiles are even with one another. Now, it is a little bit easier to keep the spacing of your grout joints better by just having the wedges going towards the tile that you already set. That kind of pushes that tile towards the set tile and makes it, you know, makes it a little bit less having to fuss around and making this grout joint looks good. But be sure you double check before you even get started looking at the edge of your tile. Make sure it's square, because you want to be able to get the right spacing clips to get the desired grout joint. So in this instance, I used 1/32 inch clips, and that basically gave me a 16th inch grout joint because of the edges of the tile not being square. But the whole process is basically rinse and, you know, dry, rinse, and repeat. You just keep doing the same kind of pattern of using the clips, and just making sure that those waffles are well filled out. So this bathroom typically takes like 1 bag of thin set to be able to set your tile. Now this always depends on your substrate, and if you have any imperfections there, you might be using additional thin set. But don't be afraid to add more thin set to the back of the tile to get things even. If there is a recess for any reason anywhere, you can always trowel the back side of the tile as well. And that's a really important point to make. A lot of times your floor might not be 100% flat, so don't be afraid to thin set the back side of the tile as well and build that up. You know, one area with the Schluter system or with the Ditra mat that is problematic is when you're putting that Curdy band over top of the seam to make it waterproof, it ends up kind of building up in that area. It's just a buildup from the layer of membrane. So that's usually an area where you have trouble overcoming that hump, and you might have to build some thin set underneath of the other side of the tile. So with Ditra membrane, I do recommend at least using that 3/8 inch by 1/2 inch notch trowel, just because you can overcome that you know, that membrane, because it, you know, a lot of times it's not in the corner, like it's basically right here in this bathroom. So this is the area where it would be problematic. And if you didn't have enough thin set underneath of all of these tiles, then by the time you got to here, you're going to have a problem trying to get this is basically to be sunken down, and you're not going to be able to get this tile to meet up with it properly. So having a thicker trowel size, you know, and if you really want to be safe all the way around, just use a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch notch trowel. You'd be better off to have more thin set than not enough. It's just obviously the more thin set, the more that you have to be careful about scraping out the grout joints, but that is less painful than getting all the way to here and then not being able to get this tile down far enough to meet this tile. So these are things that are hard to express or to know until you've done it many times and come into that problem. So, and really, I'll eventually get in, you know, I hope that, you know, there'll be communication in this course. If you have a question, hey, I'm using these tiles, what do you think of this? And I could provide some information. Again, we're going to have all that forum down at the bottom here that you can leave a comment, and that's going to be helpful for anybody who uses this, because, you know, it's hard for me to address every situation, but you know, with Ditra mat, you know, I probably wouldn't go with smaller tile on Ditra just because of that build-up scenario issue. If you're going to, you know, and really Ditra, they don't want you doing any tile that's below 2x2, 2-inch by 2-inch tiles. But if I did go with like a mosaic 2-inch by 2-inch tile, I'd probably go with, honestly, I'd probably go with a cement board and do a liquid waterproofing over top. Just because of that build-up issue. It's hard to build up small tile. You just, you know, ultimately can't do it. You know, so, you know, just keep that in mind. You know, with these larger 12 by 24 tiles, use that bigger notch trowel. It's going to make everything a lot easier for you. Build that up. So pay attention to the details. Make sure your lippage is good. And then those leveling clips will really help hold everything together. And they do make a little gun to actually clamp the wedges together if you don't. But I obviously just use my hands to just press those wedges in and get them to fit. Hey Troy, on hand, you can just buy those scrubby pads from Best Tile. The proper way to go about going around a door jamb is to actually cut out the jamb even with your tile so you can slide underneath of it. So we're just going to use our oscillating tool here and cut out the jamb. So yeah, sliding that towel over makes a lot more professional look there. Just obviously use a scrap piece when you're actually cutting against there. Now this is a little bit odd. I think I explained this again, but this is a little bit odd for your towel to go all the way outside of this door jamb. And the main reason was because this door was swinging out and not in. Typically, you would end your towel right at this door stop or right in the middle of that door stop because you don't want to see tile on. You don't want to see carpet on the inside of the door and you don't want to see tile on the outside. But in this instance, my door was on the outside, so that's why we brought that all the way over. So that slides right underneath it there nicely. So you can see it's kind of messy. I'm not going to say I'm the neatest installer in the world. Other side of the jamb. Now use a scrap piece of tile for this. You don't want to be using the finished piece of tile to go using as a reference point. But yeah, all different challenges with cutting out the jamb. But in this instance, it was a little odd because the door swings out, so that entire jamb was cut out. Typically, you're just cutting at that door stop. And then to finish off the edging in this particular bathroom, I decided to use the Schluter Rondeck. It is one of my favorite edgings for bathrooms. It looks really great when you tuck carpet to the edge of the Rondeck. Okay, so then this transition will look good on the hardwood, and then we'll nail this back in later and tuck this carpet tight after everything sets. But yeah, the Schluter Rondeck's usually the best way to go. And even if you're going to use a wood transition to go over that, I kind of like to have those on there because it looks better. Under here until it sets. To hold it in place, make sure it's even with the edge of the tile. Okay, so that wraps it up for day 5, and it wraps up all of the tiling installation. So it really, hey, great job if you got into this point. It's a great accomplishment. I'm sure you really feel good about where things are at this point. And so it's just a matter of getting to that finish line. So we got 2 more days, and we're going to make sure that we get this bathroom wrapped up. So great job, and we'll get ready for tomorrow. Okay, so then again, in my course, I always have just quick references. I really wanted to make sure that you go to my previous day on the tile layout and prep because I go into a lot about thin sets and the tile preparation of things. Or I'm sorry, it's right here, the tutorial on the recommended thin sets and coverage, and in the tile layout and prep of this floor because obviously, I did a lot of the work the day before to make this easier to set and everything. But again, using this larger notch trowel for bigger tile over Ditra in particular is going to make it a lot easier for you all the way around. Using leveling clips, you can just buy, just enough for your bathroom. Basically, this is the 130. I think this is the safest bet to go with. Is just getting the 1/32 inch clips because you can always space out them wider. And the reason that it's basically the clip itself has a spacer at the bottom that's actually making it the spacer. So, but this is all I buy is the 1/32 ones because I can space out the joint whatever I want at that point. But $85, I mean that's a lot just for a single floor. But if you're doing your whole tub surround in a 12x24, this is probably all you would need for the whole deal. And in the clips or the wedges, you get 100 and 100 of those, and you can reuse those on other projects. So I don't know. I think the kit is a worthwhile investment for setting, floor tile like this. And then, so just going over the highlights, back buttering, troweling, everything that we discussed at this point. And then just some links to getting the lawn deck. And then, hey, great job if you got to the end of this day. Definitely is an accomplishment. And again, you can always leave me a comment down below with any questions. So yeah, that was actually pretty more efficient than I thought. Hour and a half here. So if anybody has any other additional questions, but I just want to make sure that you, if you're on my YouTube channel, to be sure that you subscribe. And then you can find all of these videos that I have on there. So, I mean, if you didn't want to support the channel, if you didn't want to buy the course, you can always just go into this playlist, go under Bathroom Remodeling Online Course, and then view the full playlist. I'm going to have it all on here. Now, obviously, these are hour and a half, basically deals, and you're going to have ads every 10 minutes. I might go back through here and actually try to put some timestamps in there. But, I'm really thinking that if you can get, this course at $25 or, even if it's 50 by the time I'm done, I'm not sure what my price point will be at the end. But, I'm really I want to try to, provide, a generous amount of information and then eventually move into coaching. So if you need more real, not in person, I probably couldn't fly to Los Angeles to help you out, but, FaceTime, different things like that, I'm hoping to eventually get into. So give me a like on this video and any feedback you might have, and check out the course for sure at bathroomremodeling.teachable.com. And thanks so much, everyone, for being here. Thanks for all the new subscribers. This is really, I'm really happy to see this channel moving forward here. So have a good night. And I would imagine probably Sunday I'll move on to day 6. I still got to build all that out. So I still got some time. I got to put things together. So thanks, Troy. Keep up the good work, man. Thanks for stopping here as usual. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.